Hey, so I'm here with Christopher Scott, and we are in the lovely HQ Greensboro. And we're just going to jump right in. Chris, how did you get your start in Tableau?
Well, John David, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here and so excited to be in HQ Raleigh. I've actually never been down here. I'm from North Carolina and born and raised in Durham and lived in Raleigh for the better part of a decade now and never been down here. So I'm super excited. Love downtown Raleigh. Love the feel. In fact, that's really how, Raleigh is why I'm doing Tableau right now. So I got my start with Tableau about 6 years ago. I was working at a bank, a large regional bank that it has 3 letters, BB&T, trying to keep it on the low. But yeah, so I was working for BB&T. I was selling life insurance, and I got the first job I could find after I graduated, and I knew I needed to get out of selling life insurance and doing something IT related. So I got a job as a data analyst. Had no idea what data technical analyst meant, but my boss he liked me, he liked my personality, and so he said, okay, I'll teach you about data, I'll teach you about everything you need to know, but yes, very lucky. He's like, but I have this piece of software that I have no idea what to do with it. He's like, I've seen it, I've seen some dashboards on it, but I don't have the time, I don't have the bandwidth, I just cannot put energy toward learning this. So I need somebody that is fresh, that is new, that can learn the tool, has the passion, and can take it where I know it can go. And of course, that software was Tableau. So it was on my computer, and so I got to spend the next 6 months just head down, learning the tool, getting really inundated with data, the data from the group, and so I got to learn data, learn SQL, learn all those things as I was learning Tableau. So it really is that perfect kind of blend of being able to understand data and understand where does data come from and how do we use it, and storytelling, and all of that is wrapped up into what Tableau is. So that really is my story. How I learned about this whole world was through this one little piece of software that's become my life and your life. So that's where I started. Got about 6 months in, delivered my first dashboard, very user friendly, but it basically took these analysts 4 days out of the week to combine their data, and then 1 day of the week to do the analysis on that data. And so
how many hours is that? So that's 4 people.
4
working.
times 8, 32 hours a day per analyst times 4. So yeah.
Think about the money that you just created.
That's right.
It's a huge amount of value you just provided.
It really was. And then so from there, so I won't go into too much details now, but save that for later. But from there, I was like, okay, if I'm kind of done with this group. Like I've given you what you need to be successful. You can kind of spin off from there, but I kind of laid the foundation. And during that time, there were constantly people were seeing this dashboard, like, hey, I want that. I want something like that. So I kind of became this internal SME, internal consultant, if you will, at BB&T. And so I knew we knew after we created the dashboard, we were like, so how are people going to see this? So we were working with Reader, and there's severe limitations. Even Tableau themselves are not.
Yeah,
they don't want. they want to kind of retire. Kill off is the technical term. They want to kill off Reader, but the Tableau server, like, we have to have something we can share these analytics, because if they're just on our team or they're just on my laptop, they're not doing anybody any good. And what we discovered was the faster we could get these analytics in the hands of like the analysts and the fraud team, they could make decisions, and that would save clients money, it would save the bank money, it would do all these things. So we're like, we've got to find a way to shorten that time between when the data comes out and when they see this dashboard. So we're like, we need server. So I said, okay, the only way we're going to get it in this bank is if we go to the upper level, go to HQ. So I heard about this new organization coming through, the Enterprise Data Office. I said, this is the only way we're going to get Tableau Server in, is if we get it in there and they distribute from there. So I took on a job there and didn't really pan out like I was hoping. So then I took another job with a pharmaceutical company. And that was fantastic, and it got a lot of lot of new opportunities to work with data I had never seen before, a lot of challenging data. So it really stretched me, and got to help set up their center of excellence at the pharmaceutical company. And then I basically just decided, if I'm being an internal consultant at this company, and I'm being basically an internal consultant here and a SME at this company, well, that's great for those two companies, but I think I can have a lot more impact and a lot more influence if I just go be a consultant. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm currently helping out an insurance company, helping out government agencies, all these things to really bring Tableau into the hands of analysts, of just the people that know the data. Because for me, that was the biggest turning point, was not knowing anything about data or Tableau or analytics, and being able to derive value out of data from basically an insurance salesman, right? So that's what I was before I came in the door. And so if I could come in and do that, I knew that anybody could. And so that's been my driving passion from that onset, is how can I help the most people become analysts? I mean, kind of catchphrase, everybody's an analyst, but right. Everybody has their own data. Everybody needs to be able to understand their data, make decisions off of that data, and drive action to either save money, or make the client happy.
Yeah, I mean, we at Silvertone, we often say data's become the new gold.
That's right.
And we teach people how to mine it.
Yeah,
That's
fantastic.
What use cases have you used for Tableau?
So the first one I got started with was working with the fraud data. Worked with a few analysts that were doing just trying to combine all of this data in Access, basically, and then they were slicing and dicing the data, creating these lines of code, trying to query this data and get these where clauses and all of these things that I had no idea about. I mean, coming from knowing nothing, I was trying to read this, and it was like a foreign language to me. Right. So I kind of swiped away all of their pivot tables, their sheets and sheets of pivot tables in Excel, all of their Access databases, and I said, look, what are you looking for? And when they came back, it was just literally four things. It was who was it happening to, when was it happening, where was it happening, and then what time was it happening. And so and then finally the dollar amount, right? So five fields. And all they were doing was just slicing and dicing the data by these five fields and looking at things. So when I created the dashboard for them, it immediately, they went from doing that 4 days worth of analysis or combining the data to now being able to get that data in automatically, and they were just saving hours and hours and hours of time. And then what that meant is they could really focus on doing the analytical work. So now they didn't have to do all these queries to make stuff bubble up to the top. Now the stuff that was bubbling up to the top, the high fraud amount, was coming right to the top. So they could we knew that, we know what's happening there. So now let's dive in a little bit deeper and filter out a few things, click on a few things, and that interactivity with Tableau was absolutely essential for them to go to that next level of analysis. One of the coolest stories I like to tell is when there was an analyst that had been using Tableau a little bit, but basically just kind of creating some text tables because it was the easiest way to kind of get around in the data. Well, once I created this dashboard, he became a very big proponent of Tableau.
Oh, nice.
So we created this dashboard, he got in it, and he was looking at some international trends. So one of the biggest problems that we were having was we would look at this dashboard, and the United States, in particular North Carolina, was always red. And so it was the most amount of fraud, the most amount of just overall dollars, because it's a super regional bank, so a majority of the transactions are going to come in. So that meant the whole rest of the map was, so if we were using a red to blue color spectrum, everything else was blue. So it made, you couldn't do any kind of analysis. Well, very easily was able to show him how to right click on the United States on the map in the dashboard. He didn't even have to get in the dashboard. He could right click, exclude, and then all of a sudden the rest of it was like a Christmas tree lighting up.
Yeah.
The whole rest of the map opened up. He zoomed in. And so one week he came into one of our weekly staff meetings, and it's like, I think I'm noticing some transaction in Georgia, the country, not the state, but he's like, I think I noticed some transactions in some high volume in Georgia, and we obviously ask him, well, where are you getting this from? And he's like, well, the dashboard. It's like, it's showing a lot of red, and so we looked into it. They went and looked in the data. They actually had to use access to get in the back end, but I was okay with that because they just filtered out just for Georgia. And they started seeing these trends coming through, and they took a look at the incoming transactional volume, and sure enough, it was that we had gotten a call from Visa a few days later saying, "Hey, we've already put in some rules, but be aware if a transaction's coming from the country of Georgia, there's a fraud ring in it." So, the guy was just sitting there kind of arms crossed, patting himself on the back going, yeah, well, we already knew about that. So we had implemented a rule before, Visa implemented their rule to be able to block those transactions before they occurred. So it was just a really, very easy way in Tableau, and just a quick filter, but something that made this analyst's job not only easier but more effective. Mm-hmm. And so we used to say the time between a transaction, a fraudulent transaction, and a mitigating reaction is literally money. And so the shorter you can bring that down, the more you're going to save the client's money, the more you're going to save the bank money, because we don't have to issue that those funds back out. So that was just a really great use case. The next one, I was at the pharmaceutical company, and we were going to bid for all of these. It was a clinical trials company, so we were going to bid for all these diseases and these trials for these drugs and whatnot. Well, we were starting to use Tableau to present some of this data, and some of the first things that got out there were okay, but I came on board, and I basically was working with the clients. I was like, well, what's important? Kind of getting back to that question. Well, what are you trying to say here? And it got down to where we wanted to tell a story. We wanted to use the data, all of this data coming from all these different data sources, and we wanted to tell a story of what does this disease look like? What does a cure look like? And so they were telling this. I was like, you guys are telling a story. You've just got it in like 4 different dashboards that you're not combining. Right. So we used the story point functionality of Tableau, and we were able to combine all those dashboards and kind of weave this narrative together that actually ended up winning us a huge contract with a company. Nice. So it was, and they had said in their notes said we get tons of requests and all these things every week. But this is one of the best uses we've seen of the data, and it was because everything else was either done in Excel or some kind of infographic that was a dime a dozen. But the ability for not only to showcase and weave that narrative, but then for whoever was presenting it to be able to go in and click on something and say, well, yes, this is doing it in this area, so now let's click on that and see the rest of the. Did it follow you? Yeah.
Oh, no, it didn't.
All right.
But
so to click on it and be able to interact with the dashboard and drill into more data, get more information, I think was really critical for that win. And to the second half of that was we actually started bringing in some social media data. Oh, wow. So one of as that kind of came across my desk, and they had started to ask for Tableau. They were like, we want Tableau. And I'm like, well, that could mean a lot of things. So what do you want? What are you trying to do? And they're like, well, we use social media data. And I was like, well, how do you use social media data? And it actually kind of came back to one of those that first fraud thing where I had the experience of being able to kind of spot the trends and looking at real-time data and how is it moving, because they wanted to know what was being said, where was it being said, who was saying it, what time, time of the day, type things. And all of this was using Twitter data, using other social media data. And so that we were able to bring that into as a part of our package, what we were selling. And everybody wanted it. So that was great, because what I realized was the untapped potential for social media analytics, and being able to see the who, what, where, when, to find out really why are they saying it. And I know you do a lot with survey data, right? Yeah. So every time I talk about social media data, I'm like, well, we in 2018 we're really moving past. I know SurveyMonkey and Google Forms and everything is all out there, but we're moving past the idea where if we want to get feedback and sentiment for what are customers saying about us, we don't look to those things anymore. We look to social media. And look to Facebook, look to, we were talking about Reddit earlier. Yeah. What are people saying online? Because I think the premise of anonymity certainly gives people a little bit more freedom to express their opinions, good or bad.
To be monsters, right?
That's right. But still, but we have found that the ubiquity of data online, of what people are saying, there's some signal and noise there, but I think for overarching though, you can find out what customers are saying a lot quicker.
If you had to start over learning Tableau, how would you approach it?
That's an excellent question. I was really excited to see this one. So if I was restarting Tableau, or as I tell my many trainees, as I do a lot of trainings throughout the week, the one thing over and over again is to be able to do what's called Makeover Monday. So in the Tableau community, it's been going on for about 3 years now. There's even a book called Makeover Monday.
I heard about that.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, it's a new data set every week, and there's a visualization that may or may not be terrible, but it's a visualization that the authors of this community have said we think this could be done better, or this is not always the best way to present this data. How would you make this over? So I did get started in this actually at TC 17 it's TC 16 in Austin. So they did a Makeover Monday live session, and so I was able to really get my feet wet and figure out what was this all about. And the more that I broke down what it was that I was doing, I'm like, this is training 101. I for so long I had been all about, okay, this is how you open Tableau and you connect to this data source, and this is how you build a bar chart, and this is how and those things I think are really helpful. And Tableau does have a ton of resources on how to do literally anything you can think of in Tableau. But the more I started to think about how I became successful and how I was able to create dashboards, it was all about getting your hands on real data, not Superstore data, and then I think one of the biggest hurdles is, especially for me, that when I first got started with Tableau, I had one data set. I just had fraudulent claims data.
You know what this makes me think of? We were talking about playing music.
Yeah.
The difference between being in your bedroom running through scales versus joining a band.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Then, I actually just taught my first Tableau 101 course through HQ Greensboro.
Nice.
And what we did was we walked through a use case together. So we're not just looking at here's how you open it, here's how you connect to Excel.
Yeah.
It's okay. So here's the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You have a consulting client that's in the manufacturing space, and they want to optimize their sales and inventory operation. These are the KPIs. Here's the raw data file. Let's get to it. And then just run through it. You're hitting all the points.
That's right.
But you're not even thinking about it. Just like when you're jamming in a band, you're not thinking about, I'm in the Mixolydian scale right now. Like in the A key.
Yeah.
It's much more, I guess, is that fluid intelligence where it's like not rigid and stiff.
Absolutely. Yeah, it gets you out of that classroom mentality.
Right.
And so the even in those cases, Makeover Monday is always fresh. And so I think about the different data sets that I've come across, and it's things that you would never go through. Even things that, as any business analyst, I mean, you're not going to be doing things on taxi data or on volcanoes or any of these things, and you might one day that may become a passion for you, and but chances are you're not going to be able to see that data again. So it kind of frees you up from thinking, oh gosh, I have to solve this problem or I'm going to lose the company millions of dollars. No, it's a fresh data set that has no strings attached, and you can get in there. And the fact that you limit it down to an hour has made me really proficient. And I know, actually, I heard this on Twitter a few weeks ago. One of my friends said, I had a meeting where I had to create a dashboard off of data that I had never seen before in a meeting in an hour. And so she was like, "Thank you, Makeover Monday." So as I thought about that, I'm thinking, as we go into new situations for me, it's different lines of business. So everything from marketing to sales to to finance. I go into a new situation, and I'm going into it like I would go into Makeover Monday, in that I've never seen this data before. These people know the data a lot better than I do. Right. But if I'm going to help them to be able to kind of whiteboard and to think through some of the possibilities, ask the right questions, I've got to be able to sit down, look at the data, very, very clean and fresh, and go, okay, what is pivotal here? Now, having the other people in the room is certainly critical. Having, like in Makeover Monday, having that original data set and article that usually comes with it is pivotal into understanding kind of what problem is this trying to address, what situation is this addressing, but in the use case, right? But the more I can be fluid, the more I can kind of improvise and think through. Okay, you've got this problem. I know that's going to require this, and this field, and then just start going. And so I've had the most success in those whiteboarding meetings when literally we connect to the data set, we pull it up, and we can just start visualizing the data. And that's when more questions come. They say, oh well, that actually doesn't look right. We should look at this and this. So the more we can do that, and then we can transition that. I feel like, again, talking about starting over, that I would be less concerned with knowing as much as I can about the tool, how to create radial bar charts or how to create Sankey diagrams. Yeah, that's fun, but that's not what I'm focused on. Right. I'm focused on how to drive decisions and actions and create value out of these dashboards and these visualizations. Actual insights. Yeah, exactly. And then how to translate that so other people can then take the tool and answer their own questions. Mm-hmm. They can use that. So we talked about it earlier, but one of my kind of key themes for part of 2018 and mostly 2019 is becoming more of a shepherd and less of a Sherpa. So I don't want to take the brunt of everybody's data problems and think I have to solve them myself, but I can definitely teach more people how to use the tool, how to understand their data, how to ask the right questions, and do all those things so that they can make something themselves. So, and it's less work for me, and more work for me on the beginning, but certainly less work for me overall. But you're empowering more people, and the more people that get empowered, it's just this kind of ripple exponential effect that they inspire and empower others, and it becomes a lot. Where if you're constantly the Sherpa, I think about those guys that take the people up the Mount Everest. You can only take a certain number of people up the mountain every time, and you're the rate limiting effect. You are always the bottleneck if you're always having to do the dashboards or bring the data in or do any of these things. Whereas if you can really help and enable people, that's why we've transferred our the title of Center of Excellence has some kind of bad connotation. So when I came into this new role, they were like, yeah, we probably wouldn't use Center of Excellence. There's been some other technologies that have come in and used that, and it just became this kind of factory, and you had to do everything the right way. And so I said that's perfect. I said, because I didn't want to call it a Center of Excellence anyway.
Right.
So it's a center of enablement. So the more we can be that resource for people, it changes what you do. It changes how you work with Tableau, how you work with people. And so so I'd say the more, if I could start over, that would be my focus, and that's what I'm focused on now, and will be focused on probably throughout the rest of my career. So
Cool. Well, I really appreciate your time.
absolutely.
And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks.